Welcome back, friends. And speaking of back, I just got back from vacation, and while I was gone, there was an interesting article that was posted with some news from the producer of Persona 5X that I want to share with you, as it may shift some thoughts around pull plans and what we may be saving for in the immediate future. So let me jump into their article here. And what you're going to see is this noisypixel.net article itself. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I want to focus in on this insight from the developers, but feel free to pull this up and read at your own leisure. And specifically, it says here that in an interview with producer Jun Matsunaga, he confirms that the global version of P5X will follow a unique update schedule separate from the Chinese release. Popular events will return, but there's no plans to fast-track Western content. So really, there's two things you can take from that statement right there. The first is that there's not going to be like a hyper speed up, ramp up to get us caught up to the Chinese release so that we're on parity with events and things as they come out, which is not unusual in a gacha game. We've seen this in several other titles where you have a release in some other country and then a global or a different version comes out later, and there's 6 months, a year gap, or whatever that difference may be. So we're always going to be behind the Chinese releases, what you take from that. The other piece is we may not have the exact same banners always at the same exact time. And when I think about this, this makes sense because of the timing of certain things. Like maybe our, Chinese New Year timing is different in game than when they had it, and so they have to change the banner timing, things like that. But the one that is more immediate that a lot of us are kind of speculating on over in Discord and some other, channels is the summer event. So if you go to the actual trailer for the game that came out when they announced it, there's a couple seconds of the summer event shown within the trailer itself. So no real spoilers here. This is something you've probably already seen, whether you noticed it or not. And it brings with us two characters. And if this comes early, that might be something you want to consider. Originally, I believe that this came with Content Cycle 2.0. And so the big thing here is whether or not these characters are going to come during this kind of 1.x cycle and really fast track two potentially important characters. So let me jump into the game, and I want to look at who they are and what they do with you. So here we are in Paulina Mall, one of my favorite areas. I'm glad that they have this in here now. And jump into my character screen. I have one of these characters built and the other one I do not have at all. So I have Summer Moko. I'll come back to her in a minute. And I do not have Summer Closer. So Summer Closer is effectively the 5-star version of Closer, Summer Moko, the 5-star version of Moko. They do different things in their 4-star versions completely. So first, let's talk about Summer Closer. And with Summer Closer, and actually with all characters, I'm going to talk about them from their base pull value, not fully duplicated out. The short version is if you have all the duplicates, they're going to be better, stronger, they're going to do more for your team, things like that. And that's pretty universally true with all characters. There's a few that may change more substantially at A6, but if you're not really saving a ton of gems for them or wailing out, most of us probably are not going for limited characters up to A6. I think at most, some characters you might choose to go up to A1, but for, I think the largest population, we're going to have these at base value, and so I'm going to discuss them from a base value perspective. So Summer Closer is a AoE bless damage character. She can be really good at auto clearing, for example, because she doesn't need a ton of ramp up to really get her damage going. And certainly she is slotted into a lot of really strong teams, particularly when there's a bless weakness, of course, as that would play off of her mechanics. And so with Summer Closer, it's all about getting her into another state. So basically she can switch into, I'm not sure what the translation would be, but like Midsummer, I think is the name of it as it's translated now. And she gets to Midsummer by basically decreasing her own health. And so here you'll see that she shifts into it by consuming 15% of her max life. And then she basically does a big AoE attack. And when she's in this Midsummer, of course it's not translated, sorry about that, increases her critical rate, so her critical probability is what it says here, damage and skill effects. So basically it just makes her stronger. And then if you look at her skill 1, if she's in Midsummer, then she consumes an additional 10% of max life and does an additional bit of damage to the enemies. Now this is base level skills, the values go up as you level, things like that. But this is just, again, I don't have her pulls, I don't have her shown at max level or anything like that. So with her, she pairs particularly well with healers because she can drain her own health, get that Midsummer state, nuke some damage out there, and then get healed up. And she actually pairs particularly well with Summer Moko, which is maybe why they're, built together and released together. But effectively, if you're healing her up, she is going to refill that health. And then she also, I believe, gets some additional damage from being overhealed. When you're overwhelmed, the damage for 2 turns. It's a fun translation. I'm fairly certain this is if she is. Here it is. If your max life exceeds 8,000, you get 24 points of attack damage whenever you have an additional 100 points of life. So basically, you want to overheal her and then she does more damage. So that also works well with Miriam. Miriam can overheal characters, with just her amazing healing effectively. And so she is a particularly good damage dealer. Now, for me personally, I'm not choosing to build her, and it's for a couple reasons. One, I don't know that there's a lot of places I felt the need for her with my other units, and that's just with the current game as I play it today. Now, I have in some cases thought, oh, she'd be a really good DPS unit, so I don't think she's bad by any means. It's just I didn't need her in my current roster. And then for the global release, unless I have some, ridiculous surplus of gems, during the 2.0 content cycle, there's just other characters I wanted more. So Summer Moko is one of them. You've got Haru. You've got, Cord comes out during that time frame. Futaba comes out during that time frame. And so from the content period itself, there's just a lot of really good units that I'm going to want to pull in that relative time frame. If she comes early, so, again, we're speculating here, but if she comes early, well, now I've got to compete against Makoto. I do want to pull Fox. And so, this is after coming off of pulling Joker. And so I just think that I'm going to be spending a lot of resources. But that said, if you're not a big Joker fan and you want an AoE DPS person and this character does come early, well, she's going to be great. Whereas he's cursed, she's blessed. So it's just, the opposite, element or whatever you want to call it. And she can do some really great damage. In a lot of cases, I think she may actually even be an easier character to ramp up and build than Joker for your teams. So certainly a great pick. And if you do end up getting her and she comes out early, I do think you're going to get a ton of use out of her. So don't take the fact that I'm not going to pull for her as a sign that you shouldn't pull for her. I think she's actually a really great AoE character. So next, let's talk about Summer Moko. So Summer Moko does quite a few things for your team. She's a support/heal unit, and she really works around a particular follow-up attack that she does based on Spark, as they call it here, on the enemy. Now, sorry, this isn't translating for whatever reason, but effectively, Spark does a couple things. Once you have a few stacks of Spark on the enemy, when the enemy gets attacked, she'll launch a follow-up. And in AoE battles, you're basically doing this every turn. It's really easy to build this up. And the Spark does first a bit of damage. So it's not like, catastrophic amounts of damage, but it's a good additional amount. Second, it heals your party. And because this is a follow-up skill, this is off-turn healing, similar to like Morgana, where he can heal, after a character attacks when they're under a certain threshold of HP. So you're getting an off-turn heal. And then it also decreases the enemy's damage. And unfortunately, I can't really tell what the percents are saying here. But you're healing, you're decreasing the enemy output, and you're doing a little bit of damage. So from a sustain standpoint, that's a really strong thing to have, both the healing and the damage reduction, incoming for future hits. Now, on top of that, she has a really, really good buff. And so this buff here is an EHR buff, or effective hit rate. And it also increases attack on the person that you put this on. With this passive here, it also gives them additional max life, and it heals. So for certain characters, in particular Haru, this is a really, really, powerful buff. Matter of fact, with Haru, most people will pair her with Haru just because it helps her get through certain thresholds of damage. And it really is kind of like her own pocket weapon. Like, this is, I would almost say, like Haru's 5-star weapon in a lot of ways. In my current game in KR, I do run this team where I have these two. I think I usually use Cord with them as well. And then in global, I will absolutely do the same thing. I'm going to pull for both of these characters because I just love the team combination so much. But this buff is really strong, and it lasts for 2 turns, meaning for a couple of turns, you can then throw your, regular damage attacks out there. So your first one here is 4 hits of damage. It will prioritize hitting different enemies, so it doesn't try to like necessarily hit the same enemy 4 times in a row unless you're in like a single target moment or whatever. And then on here it will help empower her own attacks. So here it says that it increases skill damage and healing, so this just makes herself stronger. And then you have her other AoE attack, again just a big group attack, and it helps you to stack this this spark or flame or whatever they're calling it here. Sorry, the translations can be a little bit wonky. We'll get real names and such once it's global, but effectively it helps you build up the spark a lot better. And then her highlight is not one you're probably going to use that much. I want to say this is more used if you need a heal, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know that I've used this more than a handful of times. But effectively, you're taking a support unit who can heal, who has off-turn healing, who has enemy damage reduction to where their outgoing damage is lessened, things like that, and then has some AoE side damage, which again, if you're pairing her with like a Haru, they synergize very, very well. You can slot her in other teams. She doesn't have to be with Noir, and it's totally fine. It's effective. Again, you're still getting the healing, you still have the buff, things like that. So I think she's a really good unit. Again, my plan is I will be pulling for her and eventually pairing her with Haru whenever she comes out at whatever interval that is. And so for me, the real question is, how does this change my pull plans? I shared my starting tier list early on, I think maybe my last video. And for me, what this does is it makes me want to put aside a couple gems. So I'm still going to go for the same characters I already talked about. So, Joker, let's see, Queen, Fox are all in that first series where they're limited pulls. Nothing's changing there. I'm still going to pull all those. And now what I'm going to do is make sure that I put some gems aside and have it ready for her. Now, the big question after that is, do you pull the weapon or not? For me personally, on the limited characters, I like to pull their weapons. It just makes their kits feel a bit more complete. That's a personal choice. I don't know that you have to on these. Matter of fact, if we pull them up really quick, I can show you. So Summer Moko, I think the big thing for her is it really helps her healing. And so her treatment effectiveness as healing goes up. You've got an extra, bit of percentage here, whatever. And I think if I still have it, I do have it. You can see that her base 4-star just gives you a bit more, attack power, things like that, and a little bit more self-healing. So it's just a bit better. And then it gives a little bit more extra damage to the enemy is what this is all saying. So is it the most pivotal 5-star weapon? I wouldn't say so. Again, I'm probably still going to pull it. For Summer Moko, it may be more important though, because she is a damage dealer. And unfortunately, yeah, see, I can't see her weapon. I wish I could see her weapon here. But effectively more damage. I would probably say on a DPS, it may make more sense to pull it. But again, that's, based on how many resources you have. Do you want to go all in on character? Do you want to put some aside, for the next character that's coming out? Things like that. So overall, again, it's speculation. We don't actually know if they're going to come out quickly. Summer's a few months, so there's also that to consider. It's not like summer is like a week long and it's got to be in this like short window. And I do absolutely expect Joker to be the first banner. He is the, title character or whatever, main, protagonist from Persona 5. There's also modes in the game that are built around the Persona 5 cast. I'm not going to spoil, what that all means. But effectively, it doesn't make any sense to not have Joker come out first. The question is, do they come out soon? Do they come out, in the next content cycle? Do they come out, 2 or 3 weeks later? We don't know. And the only thing I think we know for sure is that we're not going to have an exact parallel in events to the Chinese release of the game. And that does give us opportunity for things to come earlier. I personally think this will happen sooner than we're expecting. And as a result, I am absolutely going to save for Summer Moko. I don't want to miss out on her, especially with the Haru combination later. But let's say that you are in a situation where you've used all your gems, or you're just kind of iffy and you don't know if you want to pull them. They'd have rerun later. So there's been a couple times with the banners, and I'm not sure if there's any right now, but there's a couple times where you've got the banner where you can select, unfortunately it's gone away. If you look at my last video, you'll see what I mean. But you get to pick certain units and then you can target, pull them. And so I want to say at least twice now, because we had a Valentine's Day event and then the annual event, or the anniversary event. And on both of those, you could pick her, if I'm not mistaken. And so they will come back. It's just whether you want them on initial run or not. So you don't have to feel pressured. You don't have to pull them right now if you really want them. But I would tell you, put some gems aside in case you do, in case these are characters that interest you and you're like, oh, I was, really waiting for them or whatever. I would prepare for them sooner than later, just in case they come early. So that's it. That's, again, it's a fully speculative video. There's been no confirmation that this is coming, right after launch or very soon thereafter. I just think it makes a lot of sense. But let me know in the comments if you are interested in either of these characters, if you're planning on pulling for these two characters, one or the other, or if they don't interest you at all and you're like, easy skip, I'll just save my gems and whatever. And while you're down there, a like and a sub would greatly help the channel and help this get out to more people. And until the next video, guys, I'll see you later.